Hey everyone, and welcome to PlaystationAge, a channel that's going to review games that you may or may not have heard of. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about Curious George. That's right, we're talking about Ape Escape. The story begins with a little monkey named Spectre, who somehow got a hold of a helmet that makes you super smart. He decides that this is a cue to change history through a time machine that was conveniently made on the outskirts of the city. He also manages to mass produce a less fancy version of the helmet to give to the rest of the monkeys in the park, because logic, I guess. But where would we be without two heroes that are conveniently going to the same lab and end up getting caught in the mess? One convenient switch flip later, and your adventure begins. One of the things you'll notice about the game is its great graphics. They're vibrant, colorful, and pretty smooth considering that they're not pre-rendered. The background parts all stand out fairly well. They fill it out well enough just to make it feel full. The monkey and enemy models also look great. None of the enemies have like a cheap rotating 2D part to simulate 3D or anything. Everything seems to be pretty polygonal. About the only complaint I could give to the graphics is the render distance. Instead of lowering the camera to encompass all that it can handle, or just showing fog at the edge, it just doesn't draw the background. Literally, it just doesn't draw anything. It never really hurts the gameplay or anything, but it can be kind of frustrating. The game's control scheme is part of what sets it apart from most other PlayStation games at the time. It actually requires you to use the analog controller, as opposed to giving the option to use Sony's old controller. Don't worry, all the buttons have a use. The controls are as such. The shoulder buttons control various weapon-specific functions and are used for jumping and camera controls. Triangle, circle, square, and X are all used for switching between various gadgets. Shoot, even L3 and R3 have a function here, which was pretty rare to see at the time. One of the staples in the game's design are the crazy gadgets you can use. I'm not going to go over all of them. Instead, I'll just explain the classifications. You've got the net, which is the only way to catch monkeys, weapons, which are used for stunning monkeys or killing enemies, and you have support weapons, which are used to make it easier to get to a monkey or just to find a monkey. Each gadget feels like it has a purpose, and none of them actually feel forced, which is nice. The gameplay is pretty simple. Most of the time you'll just be running, jumping, and using gadgets, but you can also crawl around to sneak up on monkeys, use a small paddle boat to get around the water, and later on, you can even use a tank. Yes, you can use a tank to shoot monkeys and all it does is stun them, which I'm going to have to attribute to steroid-infused bananas. Seriously, I bet these things are real. It's all pretty much everything you need for a solid 3D platformer. Movement is done with the left analog stick, while aiming and attacking are done with the right. This can be a little bit problematic since you don't use that stick for a camera, but it ends up working out alright. I've got some mixed feelings about the game's levels. Some of them are pretty well designed, like the intro level and the first modern day level. Many of them are pretty good, and do a pretty good job at reflecting the time period they came from. I say that loosely. And some, they just feel kind of forced. They really could have just been removed. They're not terrible or anything, but there really isn't a whole lot going on in them, compared to when they take place. Each level contains a certain number of monkeys, and each requires you to only catch a certain amount to progress to the next level. You will, however, have to return and catch the rest of them if you want to see the full ending to the game. Each level also contains a token collection system and time trials, like any great platformer. The tokens are scattered throughout each stage and allow you to unlock minigames. The time trials are just used to see how fast you can capture the amount of monkeys you had to catch in each stage while progressing through the story. There are a couple of levels that act as small races or marathons against your friend Jake. Neither are amazing, but they're a nice change-up. I just wish they could have had at least more than two. The last thing I want to talk about here are the minigames. They're interesting. The first game you unlock is called Snow Kids. It's pretty bland and rather misplaced. You just race around on rocket skis through a series of circuits. The graphics used are pretty lame, seeing how everybody's flat. Literally. I mean, look, they're flat. And the controls are pretty broken. Turning is hard, and you control each ski with a different joystick. Now while that does follow the rest of the game's control scheme, it doesn't really work when you need to make hairpin turns. Now the boxing game is pretty fun. You use various monkeys and just box. Each arm is controlled by a different joystick, and you can do everything from jabs to blocks, hooks, and pretty much everything in between. Now the game's controls are a bit broken, since you can do the exact same move twice and not get the same amount of force. And it's pretty darn difficult, but it is pretty fun once you get the hang of it. The last one is probably my favorite. It's designed just like an old school top-scrolling space shooter, but you use a monkey UFO and fight all kinds of really weird things like space pigs. Everybody likes space pigs, right? Overall, this game's pretty solid. It may not have quite stood up to its collectathon contemporaries like Banjo-Tooie or its platform contemporaries like Crash Bandicoot 3, but it's still a pretty good game. It's got fun gameplay, it's got great graphics, and it's an amusingly cheesy story. Any gamer could probably get through this game in about 8+ hours, including going back to get all the monkeys. I really hope this is one game that hits the PSN one day, and make sure that you don't buy the PSP remake unless you absolutely want to play it on the go, because it really wasn't as good. PlaystationAge gives Ape Escape for the PS1 8 peak point helmets out of 10. Hey everyone, and thanks for watching PlaystationAge's review on Ape Escape. If you want to watch more of our videos, click on the annotations below. Also, remember to like this video and to subscribe to our channel. Subscriptions make me happy, and they keep me off my medication. Also, if there are any ladies who are looking for a man that tends to value brains over bronze,